Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my Nonfiction November and Indigethon TBR video. Nonfiction November is a booktube event which many of us here on booktube look forward to. It is hosted by Olive over at the channel of Book Olive. I'll leave a link to her channel down below. And Indigethon is a read-along which I consistently miss, so much so that this year in April or May I just kind of had my own Indigenous authors reading month, but I feel bad because I'm not a really good planner, but I wanted to participate in Indigethon to a certain extent this year during the actual Indigethon, because I think it's not, it's kind of important to honor that month coming up. So I have two different TBRs. One, I'm going to actually follow the prompts. That's Nonfiction November. And then for Indigethon, I don't think I'm going to be able to read enough total books during the month to answer all the prompts. So I'm just going to read some books by Indigethon authors, and I'll talk to you about those real quickly. So for Nonfiction November, I am still continuing my buddy read with Mary and Ryan of The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. We have, I think, 3 more 50-page sections to finish up, so we will definitely finish up this month. I'm not reading this for any one of the prompts because I'd already begun reading it. It will be a carryover, but this has just been a really great reading experience, and as I've said many times, getting to read it with Marion has been really great. Marion grew up in the north in New York, and I grew up here in Texas, and I think that's offered some interesting kind of insights on both our parts about the Great Migration and the history of racism and discrimination here in the United States, and kind of our connection to it in various through our lives or through people in our lives. Anyway, that's been a really good buddy read. So that one's not for any of the prompts. For the prompt collections or collecting, I'll have them over here. I am going to be buddy reading Square Haunting by Francesca Wade. It's about 5 writers in London between the wars. I'm buddy reading this with Hannah's Books, Stephanie Cohen, and Noelle the Book Rook. Stephanie and Noelle are commenters extraordinaire here on BookTube, who we all kind of depend on and look forward to their comments, their insights. It'll be great to be buddy reading that. I'm going to use this for the prompt collection or collecting because it's a group biography to a certain extent of these 5 women writers who lived in essentially the same kind of neighborhood in London. I've been meaning to read this book for some time, and this is just a great reason to do it. Nonfiction November, and a great group of people to get to read it with. For the prompt, Nonfiction November prompt style, I am really anxiously looking forward to reading Speak Silence in Search of W.G. Sebald by Carol Angier. This is a big biography of one of my favorite writers, that's W.G. Sebald. I think it's the first really full biography of Sebald, perhaps. When I learned about this, this is one of those books I actually pre-ordered because I was so interested in it. If you're looking at it, you notice it is a big chunky book. Fortunately, the print is pretty big, and it kind of tops it. It's got a lot of notes and other academic stuff attached to it, so it really only weighs in at a little over 450 pages, I think. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. Sebald had a really specific style of writing in his novels anyway, the 4 novels I've read, and so I'm looking forward to that and answering some questions about what Sebald was actually up to and his writing technique and his approach. For the prompt treatment, I am reading The Dawning of the Apocalypse, The Roots of Slavery, White Supremacy, Settler Colonialism, and Capitalism in the Long 16th Century by Dr. Gerald Horn, who is a professor of history at the University of Houston, near where I live. I saw this book discussed in a discussion with Ami from Ami, the channel name I can never remember. I'll leave a link to down below, where he actually had Dr. Horn as a guest, and they discussed this book and other things, and that really made me want to read this book and to read Dr. Horn's work. If you haven't seen Ami's series where he actually interviews authors, you really should. Like I said, I'll leave a link to specifically the one where he talked to Professor Horn, but there have been others, and they're really, really great. Ami's done a great job of adding some really slightly different and interesting content to BookTube before those interviews, but those interviews also. And then for industry, I really struggled to find a book I thought would fit with industry, but I read this month in October, a book kind of connected to the motion picture industry. And I remembered that I had somewhere on my shelves a book about history, comparing history to movies and how good a job movies did with historical subjects. And as a matter of fact, I think I read a few of the essays in here. So I dug through my shelves and I found this book, Past and Perfect History According to the Movies, which contains essays from historians about movies on historical topics and kind of how accurate they are and how they relate to the historical facts, something that's really interesting to me. And I will be reading from this book. There are, I think 70 essays in here. They're mostly short, and I'll try to read the whole book, but this is what I'm going to count for industry because of the motion picture industry. And I am looking forward to kind of just reading this as a book and not reading it kind of like, you can notice it's kind of shaped almost like a coffee table book, and not reading it like a coffee table book you dip in and out of, but as an actual book. So those are my 5 books for Nonfiction November. One is a carryover from Buddy Read that started some time ago. One is a new Buddy Read, and then the biography of Sebald I'm really looking forward to, the book by Gerald Horn, and then Past and Perfect, the movie about Hollywood. So that's my Nonfiction November TBR. And like everybody else, I'm excited. The end of the month, the beginning of a new month, particularly a new month in which there's some kind of big reading event that I'm excited about, or just a month in which I've said this is my month to choose the books I want to read. Always kind of like a little Christmas is coming kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to doing some Indigethon reading as well. As a part of Indigethon. So the first book I'm reading for Indigethon is a book I've already started. It's a book I intended to have read by Halloween because it's kind of a horror, scary novel, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, who is an indigenous author. He is an enrolled member of the Blackfeet Nation, and so I'm really looking forward to get to finishing that. I have started it. It is I think that this cover describes it. Yeah, the New York Times described it as gritty. It is definitely gritty and interesting and kind of fast-paced, and so I've been having to kind of keep myself away from this one a little bit because of my Victober reading, which I've been struggling with a little bit here. But I'm really looking forward to finish this, and I think it will carry over in November, so I'm going to count it for an Indigethon read. Also, I went to a half-price bookstore recently, my first kind of trip to a bookstore in a long time, and I found a copy of Louise Erdrich's Tracks, which I believe is the book people tell you to read first from her kind of series of related early novels. And so I'm going to read that. It's not a very long book, and I'm really looking forward to this. One of my Mooks and Gripes bucket list goals was to read all the works of Louise Erdrich, and this will, get me started on that path, or continue me on that path. And in addition to that, if I have time, I want to read Crazy Brave, the memoir by the poet Joy Harjo, she may still be the poet laureate of the United States. I think Sean talked about this in his video. But I also want to read that memoir. I read in My Own Moccasins a memoir of a Canadian indigenous woman, and that was really powerful. I read that in April or May, and so I'm looking forward to Joy Harjo's memoir as well. If I don't get to it this month, I will at some point. Anyway, there you go. There's my Nonfiction November and Indigethon TBRs. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.